This has been a presentation of WPXI TV's Channel 11 News, serving the people of the Pittsburgh area for over 28 years.
I'm a white, educated Pittsburgh woman, and it wasn't until I was at the hospital being treated for battering as a wife and as a mother at the age of 34 that I knew that there was a problem called domestic violence.
I do believe that I would have gotten help sooner had I been arrested for what I was doing. Had I been dragged into court, I got away with it for too many years.
It's a family matter. And it's for that reason that police really didn't like to get involved in it.
Who takes it serious? Who takes the act serious?
We deal with bank robbers, burglars, murderers, and rapists. We don't deal with people that beat their wives.
I've had cases where she has expressed to other people the inevitability of being killed. She said, I know he's going to kill me someday. And that is what he's done.
The women who takes it serious are already dead.
Police officers, ma'am. Is there a problem here tonight?
Friday night fights, wife battering, spouse abuse, domestic violence. Different names reflecting society's changing attitudes toward violence between a man and a woman inside a home. But one thing we've never called it is a crime. Although most injuries to women and half the murders of women in this country are due to domestic violence, our law enforcement agencies have consistently refused to get involved in this so-called private problem. The shocking reality is that between 2,000 and 4,000 women will be beaten to death this year in their own homes. Someone Battered, Someone Blue takes a look at the new national Get Tough policy toward domestic violence, especially in the form of a bill before the Pennsylvania Senate, the Probable Cause Arrest Bill. And we'll examine whether the police and the courts in the Pittsburgh area have been taking domestic violence seriously all along.
Who takes it serious?
Because of the fact we lose nationally so many police officers a year through domestic violence cases, that it is not a call that is ever taken lightly.
A lot of people think domestic calls are a waste of time anyway. You're going to have to allocate a certain amount of time to these calls because now it's being mandated. Just as 15 to 20 years ago, rape cases weren't taken seriously.
The judge doesn't take it serious.
This is very serious. It is not a joke. You're talking about the same impact in the home as outside the home. And if someone's badly beaten in the home, you should respond the same way if they're badly beaten in the street.
The aggressor doesn't take it serious.
I think as long as abusers think that they can get away with it because it will not be treated seriously by the courts, and if that's the abuser's perception, then it's going to continue.
And the victim doesn't take it serious.
When I talked to that hotline volunteer, that was the first time anybody had ever taken my story seriously.
If he keeps on abusing her, statistics show, and my experience shows, that the abuse gets worse. It gets more severe and more frequent over time. And I don't think the abuse ends unless a man gets help with his problem until someone is crippled or killed.
The women who takes it serious are already dead.
Last year, a national task force on family violence made the recommendation that society stop treating domestic violence only as a social problem and start treating it as a deadly crime. The task force grew out of years of increasing national concern over family violence. 10 years ago, domestic violence cases almost never appeared in court. We hardly seemed to believe that domestic violence existed at all. This was the climate in which the 1976 Protection from Abuse Act was passed. It was the first step toward protecting the victim. 10 years ago, it was believed that domestic violence cases didn't belong in criminal court. That's why the PFA, the Protection from Abuse Act, was designed to be handled by a family court judge. With the PFA, an abuser can be removed from the house for up to 1 year, and it can be granted on the word of the victim without criminal evidence.
The woman gets what she wants, and that is him excluded from the house. She gets it right away.
It's a way of having power over the man, the abuser, without actually taking him to criminal court and going through a prosecution. So that, in a sense, is a way to simplify matters.
And it has simplified matters. 700 PFAs are being granted in family court every year. Many women are being protected from abuse through this act. But up to 20% of the PFAs are violated, some seriously, to the point of murder. It's obvious that more has to be done.
Getting the PFA legislation was a tremendous victory for battered women. However, it won't work in every case. Why is that? Because the man has to respect the law.
The 9-year-old PFA is society's first step toward taking some responsibility for ending domestic violence. It will continue to be a most valuable tool, but it doesn't actually punish the abuser for committing a crime. Society must say that violence under any circumstances is unacceptable, even in the home. Pennsylvania is about to take that next important step toward ending domestic violence. The probable cause arrest bill, which is before the Senate, having passed in the House last spring, could become law at any moment. It lets police arrest the abuser without a warrant right here, right now, in the home. This would be a significant improvement in police procedure. Just a few days ago, a domestic tragedy occurred in Washington County, which might have been prevented by probable cause arrest.
Why do they do this? Why don't they do something?
A grieving friend of a murdered woman asked why the police didn't do anything. They had been called to the scene just hours before the deaths and left again.
She called the cops, and all they said was that they couldn't do anything unless something happened.
She was properly advised, and at this point in time, we don't have the personnel to have an officer at every doorstep.
Police don't have the power to arrest in domestic scenes, even if they feel that violence has probably already occurred. If the probable cause arrest bill had already been passed, they could have taken the violent boyfriend away immediately and maybe prevented a murder.
And why is it that you have to wait till someone dies for something to happen?
In the 22 states that already have probable cause arrest laws, the police can make an arrest right away. In Pennsylvania, the officers must go downtown to apply for an arrest warrant.
Well, that's all well and good. You're talking about a procedure that takes anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 to 8 hours just to get that piece of paper. To get a piece of paper that says, yeah, you can go out and arrest someone. Well, in that 3 or 4 or 5 hours, either things calm down in the house or he killed her.
Usually the police don't have time to get the warrant, so they seldom arrest.
With the probable cause arrest bill, I don't have to take 4 and 5 hours anymore. Once that bill is approved by both houses in the legislature, once it's signed by the governor, I don't go get a warrant anymore.
I do believe that I would have gotten help sooner had I been arrested for what I was doing.
It's going to solve the problem of the abusive husband that laughs and says, go ahead and call the cops. They can't do anything about it anyway. Now the cops can do something about it.
In a well-known Minneapolis domestic violence experiment, abusers who were arrested repeated their violence 60% less often than abusers who were never arrested. The probable cause bill is being supported by women's shelters, police, courts, and members of both political parties. One of the bill's supporters is Senate Majority Leader Senator Robert Jubileer.
Clearly, the intent of the bill is absolutely not only admirable, but very important to have. I like the way it dovetails with the Protection from Abuse Act. There's never been any question that this is a very vital piece of legislation. I expect it to pass the Senate, perhaps in a different form, but with the basic integrity of the bill being kept.
But before the bill has even passed, there are those who believe it does not go far enough. Police attitudes could get in the way. What we've heard is that police may not want to arrest because they don't think they should be interfering in a family problem. Or they may feel their superiors would think they would be wasting their time on a non-serious call. Society has decided that police can't treat battering in the home any differently than they treat it down there on the streets. Their attitudes toward making the necessary arrests must change. What makes answering a domestic violence call different from other calls?
When a police officer goes into a domestic violence call, you're a negotiator, an arbitrator, a referee, a judge, a jury, an attorney.
The police simply are a 24-hour-a-day institution that takes care of things that no one else has the time or inclination to handle.
Okay.
What's your address, ma'am?
Never mind.
Okay, ma'am, what's your address? Ma'am,
314 Range Drive.
Okay, no problem?
My husband's going crazy.
Okay, ma'am, give me your name. Give me your name, please, ma'am. Ma'am, give me your name. Okay, on the way.
Mr. 22.
22.
Domestic disturbance, 314 Range Drive. Possible gun involved in this.
22 received.
There have been numerous complaints over the years about the way police handle these calls, about their attitudes about women and domestic matters.
When I knew that I had to call the police, the first time they arrived fairly quickly. He looked at me and said, well, you know, you're able to talk to me. And essentially what he was saying is because, you know, I wasn't bleeding profusely and, you know, my jaw was still on my face, it was his duty to take me to the hospital.
The chief says that you can spend no more than 5 minutes taking care of a domestic case, unless the victim is lying there bleeding. But again, what you have to take in mind, you have a certain basic theory that's involved in police administration. Budgets are tight. Manpower is tight. There are people out on the streets that would like to break into all these stores, and I'm supposed to be out there taking care of the business district, not spending an hour and a half in here with two people who can't get along.
But police attitudes are often born of frustration.
I think the police officer in this situation is put in a very difficult position. It's, you know, it's not a typical police case with procedure already set. He almost has to go in and play it by ear.
Police officers are uneasy with a domestic violence call because the situation can be so unpredictable and also very dangerous.
Anything? I don't like when it's this quiet.
You don't know what you're walking into. You're going into somebody else's house. You don't know where the doors are. You don't know if this person has any weapons in the house.
The second largest killer of police is the domestic violence situation.
We don't pay him enough to get killed.
No! You deserve it. You deserve it. Oh, stop it! You deserve it. Stop it. Every bit of it you deserve.
Just get out of my face.
Police officers.
5 years ago, police had no training in domestic situations. Today, rookies receive up to 20 hours.
To get them down to the grassroots, they do, in fact, have role play. So if you're faced with this sudden situation, how do you react?
Through training, rookies can learn to reduce the danger. They may also learn not to develop attitudes like, it's a private matter, not for police. Why bother? I've been there 3 times this month already. And maybe she deserved it anyway. Training rookies is crucial, but the President's Task Force on Domestic Violence also recommends written procedures for all police.
I don't think that the police are resistive, you know, to training or are resistive to guidelines. Procedures and policies are of utmost importance to the officer, so he knows what's expected of him. In Pittsburgh, if there is no policy or procedure, there will be.
There currently is no official policy for answering domestic violence calls in Pittsburgh. It's hoped that John Norton will take action on this quickly. When he does, and if the probable cause bill passes, police will finally be able to treat domestic violence for the crime it really is, by arresting the abusers. But what will happen to all these newly arrested criminals? Is our court system prepared to handle them? Or do they have some of the same biases as the police? We'll explore that issue next.
All right! Pro's got nothing on this arm, baby.
Oh, a pro wouldn't want what's on that arm off.
Off! I'll have these clean in no time.
In the same temperature?
It's the same mud.
But it's not on the same clothes.
So?
So, this sweatshirt goes in cold or it fades, jeans go in warm, and gym socks go in hot.
3 temperatures.
3 kinds of clothes.
3 detergents.
1 detergent.
Cheer.
All temperature cheer. See? Hot, warm, cold.
This in cold.
All temperature cheer.
This was covered with mud.
You're telling me?
Everything's clean.
Hey, this is the pros, kid.
3 temperatures, 1 great clean. That's today's all-temperature cheer.
Way up high in the far-off sky, there's a very important day in the life of every cloud that makes white cloud. It's the day a young cloud makes his very first roll of white cloud, a bathroom tissue softer and thicker than any other.
Papa, I'm nervous. Are you sure he can make it softer and thicker?
Of course, Mama. I taught him everything I know.
It looks softer and thicker. Will it pass the test?
It takes a very special cloud to make white cloud so much softer than any other tissue.
It is softer.
And when it comes to thicker, no other tissue measures up.
It's thicker, too. Definitely white cloud.
Mama, our little cloud makes white cloud. It's softer and it's thicker, too. 'Cause clouds make white cloud just for you.
Hello, America.
Keep up with America as we say hello to country music's Night of Nights.
That's right. We're going to spend some time with country music's biggest stars as they get ready for the big one, the Country Music Awards.
Then we'll catch up with a dynamic acting duo, Robert Mitchum and son Chris.
And let me tell you, they're quite a team.
Plus America's salute to 25 years of fun with the Flintstones.
Yabba dabba doo.
On the next America.
Monday at 4.
Here on Channel 11.
Police are more comfortable dealing with criminal assaults in the streets than dealing with violence in the home.
In looking at newspaper clippings, we see that situations where, say, wife is murdered by husband, it may not say domestic violence related, but that could conceivably be the reason why he ultimately murdered her.
In fact, we usually don't even hear about these stories until it's too late, until we're covering a crime of murder. These tapes are stories from the past year when domestic violence has turned into murder.
Roxanne, the charred remains of Alice and Joseph Broder were found just over the hill here. Police say the couple was known to have domestic problems.
They always argued and things like that. And
she had obtained a temporary protection from abuse order to keep Broder away. That night, he caught her alone.
Probably the most frustrating type of case that I have seen is when I see it and it's too late. I see the case as a homicide. When there has been abuse for years and perhaps there have been attempts to do something about it, but it has not been successful, and then the abuser ends up with the ultimate abuse, which is killing the victim.
As a reporter, I can only tell you about the problem. The courts can actually do something. That means going beyond family court and into criminal court.
A death could have been averted if they had been prosecuted vigorously before it got to that serious stage.
You were in court earlier when I explained all of your rights to you, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you understand all those rights?
Yes, sir.
Do you also understand now that you are charged with assault in the 4th degree?
If you made it a crime,
Understand that?
put stiff penalties
I know
on
you
it,
don't have an attorney with
and you actually put the person in jail based on the fact that they've committed a criminal act with criminal intent, which they did, then maybe they will take it serious.
Two parts of the Allegheny County court system that concern us are the family court and the criminal court.
PFA is in family court because of our old traditional ideas about the home being the castle of the king, not the queen, and that what happens in the king's castle is the king's business.
But keeping domestic violence as a private family matter isn't good enough anymore. Last year, the Attorney General declared that family violence should be treated as a criminal activity. In Allegheny County, that means moving cases from family court to criminal court. But that's not as easy as it sounds. Even if the victim is badly hurt, the court may not see it as a serious crime.
Could have broken your arm, but if there was no permanent damage done to the ligaments or the bone, then you don't have aggravated assault.
In a few cases where the abuser is convicted,
You're sentenced to 90 days in the county jail.
the sentence usually isn't carried out.
And place you on probation.
There's significant time delays in which someone is out on bail. You have overcrowded criminal system, overcrowded jail, so that it's not a particularly effective mechanism at all.
But somehow the court system has to change.
A murder-suicide in Washington County overnight.
Because there is one case that always makes it into criminal court, and that's murder.
But now, after the fact, if he kills you, you have murder. Within murder, you have all of the elements of the assault. Now he can go to jail but I've got to die first.
The courts must take domestic violence seriously, but they can't do it alone. Right now, the victims don't always want to press charges.
Frequently isn't within the woman's best interest to prosecute, because if he's working, she's interested in child support. And if he's in jail, she doesn't get child support.
But victims will have to learn to work with the system.
We're going to do everything the way we're supposed to do it. But then, lady, when it comes time for you to do your job, and that's to sit in a chair and tell the judge, yeah, that man beat me. Do your job.
Will the police be frustrated is a given. The bad guy is back out on the street before the police officer has finished writing the report.
Help for the courts and the victims is just around the corner. If the probable cause arrest bill passes, the victim won't have to press charges. The police will do it.
Because keep in mind, we're asking the victim to press charges against her spouse at a time when she's most vulnerable, right after a traumatic event. If the police do that on behalf of the state, that gives her some opportunity to do the work that she needs to do.
Having the police press charges has an effect on the abuser, too. Half of the abusers arrested in Duluth, Minnesota, pleaded guilty to criminal charges right away. Before they had probable cause arrest in Duluth, nobody pleaded guilty. We hope the probable cause arrest will make the court's job easier in Pennsylvania. Probable cause is just another step to help make the courts treat domestic violence as a serious crime before it's too late.
But I take it serious because I don't want somebody picking up the paper and says, Jane Doe is dead. 2 weeks prior to this, she was in District Justice Helen Hall's court asking for help, and the case was dismissed.
Victims cannot do it alone. The police and the courts cannot do it alone. There is a whole support system which has been built up over the last 10 years, which needs to continue to grow and be supported. Victims and abusers getting help when we return.
When I'm up there singing, I like to look good for my fans. And looking good means eating healthy. Of course, I want to see my family eats right, too.
Thank you.
That's why my cooking always starts with Crisco. You see, Crisco is all vegetable, with no salt, preservatives, or cholesterol. So it makes food that's good for you. Tastes good, too. Like my tomato cheese pie. Just look how light and flaky Crisco makes the crust.
Mama, how did you fix this summer squash? I just love it.
Oh, I stir-fry that in Crisco, Patsy.
Sure tastes light and crispy.
That's Crisco. Around this house, cooking good and eating healthy can both start with Crisco.
Sure looks good on you, honey.
Oh, you're my biggest fan. Oh, Crisco will do you proud every time.
Way up high in the far-off sky, there's a very important day in the life of every cloud that makes white cloud. It's the day a young cloud makes his very first roll of white cloud, a bathroom tissue softer and thicker than any other.
Papa, I'm nervous. Are you sure he can make it softer and thicker?
Of course, Mama. I taught him everything I know.
It looks softer and thicker. Will it pass the test?
It takes a very special cloud to make white cloud so much softer than any other tissue.
It is softer.
And when it comes to thicker, no other tissue measures up.
It's thicker, too. Definitely white cloud.
Mama, our little cloud makes white cloud.
It's softer and it's thicker, too, because clouds make white cloud just for you.
Whenever the moon was full, it was out there.
What was that?
Hiding in the fog, watching, and waiting to strike again. And again. Now, from the master of mystery and suspense comes Stephen King's Silver Bullet, rated R.
Now showing at a theater near you, check newspaper for listings.
If the probable cause bill passes and it becomes easier to prosecute domestic violence as a serious crime, we will have taken that all-important second step from the original PFA legislation. In Pittsburgh, there is a different step, a second step for the abuser. It's a program of self-help therapy for men who abuse.
I think the easiest way to understand us is to think of any other good self-help group where people who have the same problem, and that is that we all have had some kind of violence, in either emotional or physical, in a relationship with a woman. And we're trying to end that abusive behavior.
It has raised my consciousness and proven to me that I still have my own responsibility for controlling my behavior, and it's not her fault.
The most important support system to the victim are the shelters, where she and her children can live and receive support during the time of crisis.
The first thing I would say to a woman who's being abused is leave. Until we get some help, leave.
Last year in Pennsylvania, more than 40,000 women and their children used the shelter system.
The shelter is home to the families who stay here. There's a living room and dining area and kitchen for the mothers to prepare the food in, which is provided by the shelter. Another advantage is that there are other people who are here to talk with, people who have gone through the similar type of experience. She can really share, and they do understand.
In Allegheny County, there is a unique program which can provide safe housing for victims of domestic violence and their children for up to 1 year. The Bridge Housing Program is the first of its kind in the country.
It's a very important concept and important for it to be in really working now, because women in crisis shelters have no place to go after they stay their 30 days maximum.
There's another victim of domestic violence who we have not touched upon, the children. While research on the effects of violence on children is very new, it is known that 2/3 of the children who come from households where spouse abuse occurs are also victims of abuse themselves. Researchers believe there is a cycle of violence where the child learns abusive behavior from the parent, becomes an abusive adult, and then passes his behavior on to his children, thus the cycle.
My father was very physically and verbally abusive towards my mother and towards the children. I believe that that had a lot to do with my thinking.
Some shelters offer support programs for the children of domestic violence.
I think that when the children come into shelter, once they become accustomed to being here, they realize that all adults are not alike. All adults do not hit children or the women.
If we ever estimate the dollars and cents only that it's costing society, it will be staggering, because it's court time and police time and hospital time. Tremendous disruption in classrooms because the children are living in such stress.
You heard in this program about the new Get Tough attitude about domestic violence, that our courts need to prosecute family violence as a serious crime so the abuser will stop and the survivors will be able to move on. How the police need to train officers and change attitudes. How we need the probable cause arrest bill to pass the Senate soon. And the need for shelters and support groups to continue. Society needs to take the responsibility for refusing to accept family violence in any form, between a man and a woman, against the elderly, or as the physical and sexual abuse of children. Every 18 seconds, a woman is beaten. During this program, 90 women were abused. Until we all take domestic violence as a serious crime in society, the abuse will continue.